Today's bike check is the 1986 Redline RL20. This was a midline freestyle bike from Redline, came complete for, I believe, $270, something like that. I don't recall exactly on all the prices and so forth, but it was a lot of bang for the buck back in the day. My friend Jamie had one. I rode with him with the Hub City Freestyle team for years. 1986, another banner year for freestyle biking. The movie Rad was out, and things were full bore as far as local scene here with freestyle. So this is pretty much going to be freestyle bikes on my timeline from here on out, because I didn't race back in the day, and I don't really have a memorable racing bike from the mid to late 80s. I remember all the early stuff. So here we go with the 1986 RL20. The bike box stock is how it's shown here. I bought this bike a couple years ago out of a Canadian collection, and this bike was actually sent piece by piece. I'll see if I can round up some photos. This guy broke this down: frame, fork, the headset, bottom bracket, wheels, axles out of the wheels. The bike was as flat and small as you could send it. So that's pretty neat, but it was a very complete bike. It's hard to pass up when you find the bike that has all the original parts as you remember. Kind of a couple of the tidbits on originality on a bike like this is the Viscount Dyna seat, which on these bikes were Redline logoed. It's going to be tough to see that. Just know that it's on there. The other thing that got wasted pretty early on with these handlebars. The handlebars are a makeshift two-piece forklifter handlebar. So it's got the same style design crossbar as the forklifter bars, which I have on my comparison contrast bike over here. So that's a couple things that I saw on the bike that I'm like, well, that's original. You know, that's pretty awesome. This has got all the original parts: drivetrain, wheels. The only thing I've got aftermarket, as most of my bikes, some cables, grips, tires, and that's about it. This bike came spec'd with a full chromoly frame, nice geometry, and now we're into the banner years of freestyle bikes with the paint schemes. This one's got a tricolor frame. It's got the California red on the main frame, with the decal fades to black at the bottom bracket, and then the chrome rear section of the bike, the chrome fork as well. Pretty neat. I mean, for the amount of money you spent on these bikes, you got a class act bike for that money. This one's bone stock, full chromoly frame and fork, tapered Proline style fork. It's got the tapered legs, real dropouts, end capped forks. I mean, it's super nice for what you paid. This is all butted tubing, the classic Redline gusset on there, flared head tube, 5-inch head tube, Hada headset. I mean, what else can you do there? Forklifter stem, original forklifter stem. This one came with Tech 6 brake levers with the lock on them. So you could lock the brakes up and do Miami hop-hops or Antriders. I forget different tricks that you use those locking levers for. This, again, is another bike that came with the Paragon offset spoke wheels. Paragon Masters. They were graphite composite, basically DuPont Zytel nylon, like the tough wheels. Suzuki hubs in those wheels. So they were a super nice wheel. None of the wheels worked well as far as having good brakes. This was an era of just putting up with whatever. We used to spray stuff on our brake shoes and so forth to make them sticky. So that's the spec on this bike. Anloon components, like the Haro Sport, has Sugino chromoly cranks. The Victor looks like MKS Graphite X pedals. Broken Arrow seat clamp. Again, the Viscount Dyna 2169 Anloon seat post with that classic decal. I added a set of pegs on this bike then too, just because even though you had incorporated chainstay platforms, which was new for this frame design, I think 85 was the first year they did that. So it extended the the chain stays out, kind of made them a angled platform, so it didn't rip off your shoes when you're pedaling the bike, but it gave you an extra foot platform, which was actually nice when you're using the peg and the combination, like doing lawnmowers, different tricks like that where you would need a little bit of leverage on the frame. All brand name components for the most part. I mean, the Anlune stuff, even though it was Taiwanese style components, they were nice components. The other thing, these older bikes, a lot of the brand name bikes came with brand name brakes. At the time, this was a lot of bike for the money. This has FS880 brakes on it, which were the low lever caliper. Pretty neat. What you'll see here, the little dust cap, I don't know if you know about those, but they always rot away and they're gone usually early on. So I was lucky to find a brake that had those on. I added the red compliments here on the brakes just because that's what they did in a lot of the ads, and that's what some of the riders did. Changshin tires, Amy grips, and I made this bike my Eddie Van Halen style bike, so it's got these crazy donuts on it. So the comparison contrast, this bike was a complete bike, like I said, for around $270. My friend Lee McIntyre, the same year that these bikes were out, bought this bike local at Hub City Cycles. So this was a local bike, and this dates back to 1986. It's been in Hagerstown all its life. This is the comparison contrast bike. It starts with the same frame and fork as the red bike. The white bike is built up how you would build it if it was up to you and you had the unlimited funds, or you were able to piecemeal it together, buying different parts and so forth to make it the complete bike that you wanted. In this case, this bike is basically an RL22 that had the double top tubes. This is that bike spec all on a single top tube chromoly frame RL20. So starting off with that, we've got the forklifter handlebars. What's cool about these are uncut, not broken, and they include the original Oakley decal, the die cut D from 1986, when people used to put those on their bikes and on their cars and on their skateboard helmet and so forth. This is the first year for the Tech 77 brake lever, 1987, 88. The Tech 7 brake levers were not made very long. They broke a lot, and they revamped them and made the Tech 77 brake lever soon after. So this is 87, early 88 maybe for this brake lever. Again, Redline forklifter stem. This bike makes it a lot easier to use the gyro, which has the double cables. When you have the double top tube bikes, it's a real pain in the butt. They usually use the gyro on those, or you have some kind of cockamamie invention where you have these tabs all bent up and it looks crazy. So I'd rather run an RL22 with no gyro than run it with some crazy convention there. What else on this bike? Okay, upgrade on the brakes. This has got the Diacomp Nippon brakes. These are 1986 stamped with the Allen bolt center. Pretty neat. Front brake also includes the quick release, so you can open the wheel to get your wheel and tire off in a hurry, changing flat tires and so forth. Down to the drivetrain on this bike, your classic Redline flight cranks. Full wrap, single pinch, classic. This one has got just a traditional ball and cup bottom bracket as far as I remember. I might have put a sealed one on there. It's not the Techmatic, in other words. The Techmatic I had on my bike came out in 86, and that's on my Haro. That'll be at a later date. This bike spec'd with the Diacomp hinge seat clamp, which was classic for the time. In the wheels on this bike, this has the Paragon Super Pro. So it's got sealed hubs, sealed bearing hubs, chromoly axles, stainless spokes, and double wall chrome plated Paragon rims. So these are the HP 48s. There's the logo and so forth on those. Pretty neat. This one's got an original set of MKS Graphite X pedals. And beyond that, that's the spec on this bike. Not a lot of extra frills. Both of these bikes come with the bolt-on style fork peg, where they call them the pencil pegs because they were tiny. And I don't know, 2 inches long. Your feet was probably 4 inches wide. So, it is what it is. Most freestyle bikes evolved to go in with the axle pegs later on in life, especially the mid-school freestyle era. They were doing all the balance tricks, the rolling tricks. Everything was based on the axle peg. So early renditions had these fork pegs. Again, good comparison contrast bikes. These are both two ways to skin a cat. You've got on the left, the bone stock version, and on the right, how you would build it up. I did the honor and justice of the one on the right to build it up as it could have been built up in the 80s. Lee did it on a budget because he was on a budget. So I took the bike over a couple of years ago and treated it to some of the parts that I would have spec'd it out with at the time, had there not been any cost prohibitiveness. I also added on that one the Unitron grips, the two-piece grips, checkerboard donuts, just because Lee always had a lot of checkerboard stuff. He wore the checkerboard headband and things like that. So there's two classic bikes, two different ways to present yourself. A RL20 from Redline Bicycles, 1986 in all its glory.